Controller is playing the role of regulating all development within the city that should be within the framework or the provisions of the master plan. So what is fundamental here is that we have a master plan, and the master plan sets out the framework for all the districts in terms of what sort of land uses should be implemented, what sorts of development should be for all the districts. So development control now is regulating how all kinds of development in the city should be in line with the master plan. So fundamentally, that's what development control is all about, regulating development within the city, and that must be tied to a framework. In Abuja here, that framework is the master plan, which sets the tone how development should be, and so development control is now regulating all kinds of activities should be like. But it's also important that we should know where to situate development control within the planning process. So in Abuja here and in most parts of the country, the planning process starts from where there's a need, and when you go through the planning process, a plan is developed, and towards implementing the planning process, that's where development control comes in. So development control is a vital component of the implementation process, the planning process. So within the planning process, at the stage of implementation, that's where development control comes in, where it's playing this role of regulating all kinds of activities, where those activities should tie to what the master plan is saying. But where you don't have that framework, or you don't have that master plan or strategic plan, in some towns, they have what they call layout plans. So this layout plan sets out the different kinds of land uses that you should have, maybe land uses for residential, land uses for markets, and all that. So development control is now regulating those development to make sure that those development conform to what the layout plan says. So by and large, that's what development control sets out to do.
Yes, thank you, Dr. No. I'm still on this first question. I want us to capture it in the layman's term. When you say development is a generic concept that affects other areas of human endeavor.
Yeah.
You have economic development, you have educational development, and things like that.
Yeah.
But in our discourse of today, in the layman's term, let's bring it down. What kind of developments are we talking in the cityscape of Abuja? I know building is one of them. Yeah. Which are others? So let's break it down in layman's term.
Okay. When you talk about development, especially when you narrow it down to physical development, where Agbato is leading me into, physical development, you're talking about within the sense of different land uses, whether development for commercial purposes, where you have malls, you have hotels, you have shopping complexes, whether physical development within the land use of residential, where you have estates, where you have different kinds of houses, some in the form of what you call row houses, or what you may even call detached buildings. Development whether in the sense of recreational, where you have parks and gardens, right? Development whether in the sense of religious land use, where you have churches and mosques. So development here is broad, but within the context which Agbato has asked me, is that you're looking at physical development, and this physical development is underpinned by the different kinds of land uses within which the city sets out. And what that means again is that for every district, you have different land uses that the master plans has set out or spaced out, articulates how these land uses should be. And so if you pick Jabi, for instance, in Jabi, the land uses, you could have land uses for residential. So we expect that in that residential land use, what you come up with will be different kinds of residential houses. And this is also provided by the Department of Development Control through what they call the Development Control Manual, which sets out the different kinds of design controls, standards, whether in terms of height limitation, whether in terms of the setbacks and all that. As we go into the conversation, we'll begin to unpack all of this. But basically, development, as Agbato has asked me, is broad. But within the context of physical development, this is also underpinned by the different kinds of land uses that you should have. And those land uses define what sort of physical development should be, like I mentioned, whether religious or commercial or recreational.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. No. And that takes us to the second question. Which planning agency is responsible for the control of development in the FCT?
Okay. Primarily, the sole institution or plan agency that is responsible for the control of development in the FCT is the Department of Development Control. So this is how the framework works. First of all, you have a master plan. The master plan has been produced, and you have the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, which is responsible for the management of the master plan and the different land uses that are encapsulated in the master plan. Remember also that we say development control occupies a strategic position in the implementation, in the planning process within the context of implementation. So the Department of Development Control basically implements some of these land uses or provisions that are captured in the Abuja master plan. So it's responsible for setting the tone in terms of plan guidance, because they have to guide the developers what sort of land uses to be implemented, what sort of whether in densities and all that. So Department of Development Control is responsible for carrying out development control. And to do that, it has different kinds of machinery or different kinds of instruments that it does that. So it has the within development control, you have the monitoring enforcement unit, which carries out this day-to-day monitoring of what's going on in the city and whether that is within the context or in consonance with what the master plan set us to do. So it carries out the daily monitoring and enforcement of illegal activities within the city. You also have within development control department, you have the unit that's responsible for plan guidance and granting of approval, which is the planning permit. What that does is to unpack the provisions of the master plan as well as the detailed side development plans at each district level and say, hey, these are the things that the master plan is saying, and these are the things that the district plans are saying, and within this context, we're guiding you how you should do your proposal, and within this, we'll guide you, and this should be within the provision of the master plan so that you can implement these within the bigger picture of the master plan. So basically, you see development control doing monitoring enforcement, which is what the public see every now and then, especially when they see the X mark and all that. You see development control granting approvals, and those approvals are within the ambit and the provisions of the master plan. In other words, development control also guides the sort of plan guidance, how the master plan should be implemented, so that at the end of the day, we'll have a robust and beautiful city. So it's quite strategic, it's quite central, because without the development control department, right, the Abuja master plan will not be implemented. Without the development control department, the city will be disorderly, because once you have a basic framework and you regulate that framework and you guide people how the city should develop, it means you're setting an orderly city. It means you're setting a city where the land uses, where people live, are also functional, and there's harmonious relationship among the land uses. So development control is critical to implementing the master plan. Development control is critical to creating a sustainable environment for city dwellers to live in. Development control is also critical for our public health. Development control is critical for public convenience, because if we do not regulate some of these things, or we do not guide the public how the master plan should be implemented through the plan guidance I talk about, it means that the city will become disorderly, things will be not done properly. And if you live in that kind of chaotic environment, it means you won't be happy. And so development control is strategic for all of this.
Yes, thank you, Dr. No. Let me remind the listener that this program is sponsored by the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners FCT chapter based here in Abuja. Our office is located at the National Institute of Town Planners Secretariat, plot 2047 Michael Okpara Way, Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. And we are open from the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, Monday to Friday. And we also have a phone number where listeners can send their WhatsApp message to, such that the following week we can download these messages and give answers to them.
Absolutely.
And this phone number is 0903 696 2942. I repeat, 0903 696 2942. That is the WhatsApp number that listeners can send their questions to. Dr. No, let's go down to the third question, which
Yes.
would think, why does the city of Abuja need to carry out development control? Why? If we don't do it, what happens?
Let's start from the bigger picture, and that has to do with the master plan again. Remember, we said the road controls framework or its reference is from the master plan. And so, one of the fundamental things why the city needs development control is to implement the Abuja master plan. So, through development control, you're able to translate the plan into reality, because it's through development control that it helps you in plan guidance. Plan guidance means you are letting the public know what specific uses or specific activities or specific land uses are expected in certain districts or even at the plot level. So fundamentally, development control sets out this plan guidance, and that helps the public to know what they're supposed to do for each district, for each plot, and the kinds of uses and all of that. So it also gives out this sort of what you call design controls. When you're doing that, you're helping to implement the master plan. And so the fundamental rule why we need development control is to help the city where the Abuja master plan is implemented. Secondly, we need why we need development control is to deal with all sorts of illegal activities in the city. Remember that when you have a city is a complex process. A city is a complex process and a complex entity where you have all kinds of things taking place. Now you need development control to regulate all kinds of activities in the city. If we do not regulate this kind of things, so you have all sort of things taking place. When I mean all sort of things, is you will see people even building on floodplains. You see people encroaching on wetlands. You see people even destroying public infrastructures. You see people converting certain land uses that ordinarily shouldn't be tampered with, where you see places that are supposed to be for green areas, see other land uses coming up. And then you see all sort of shanties that have also taken place in the city and all of that. So, two, you need development control to regulate all sort of illegal activities, right? Then thirdly, you also need development control. You know, when you have a properly guided city, a properly regulated city, it also gives this sort of a confidence for people to invest in the city. Oh, we're going to invest in Abuja because Abuja has a framework that is well articulated and is well implemented. Abuja is a city that is orderly. Abuja is a city where aesthetics is okay, the land uses are functional, and people want to invest. So you need development control to stimulate the investment profile and also to sort of boost the investment of the city and also give the confidence for people to come in. Where you have a city that's chaotic, is disorderly, is ugly, and things are not working, everything is disjointed, people will not want to invest in that kind of city. So the third need, development control helps to create that sort of a beautiful image, a functional city where people can come and invest, and through that investment, we have the city growing and people also getting involved in different productive activities. At the end of the day, you have a beautiful city. So by and large, one, you need development control for the Abuja master plan to be implemented, because it helps in the translation of the provisions of the master plans into reality. Two, you need development control where some of these illegal activities or things that are not part of the master plans to be dealt with, to be regulated, so that we'll have a beautiful city. Then thirdly, you need development control, and so that people can invest, because development control sets the tone for all of this. And fourthly, which is also very important and key to emphasize, is development control acts as a feedback for us to gauge the state at which the city is, for us to gauge where the city is heading to. What that means is, without development control, you will not be able to understand, number one, the trajectory of the land use development that is taking place in the city. You will not understand the trend at which the city is going. What that means is, if in Jabi, for instance, through development control, which the department is interacting with the public every day, you'll be able to know the different varying land uses and the trend at which they are going, whether it's the housing stock, okay, in Jabi, this is the nature of the housing stock that's taking place. This is the nature of the green area that is evolving in Jabi. This is the nature of the housing type or the economy that is happening in Jabi. So development control provides the feedback for us to understand what is going on in the city and also to gauge the trend of what is going to happen in a couple of years. And through that, it also gives you the confidence level to say, okay, through some of the things that are happening in the city, there's need for the review of the master plan. And so that's what development control is doing. So to wrap it up, one, you need development control for the translation of the master plan into reality. That's number one. You need development control to regulate some of the things that are obnoxious or some of the things that are not in line with the provisions of the master plan. You need development control because when the city is orderly and the city is properly managed and all sort of things are taken off, the city is functional, people can now invest in the city and the city can now blossom. And then the last one, you need development control because it provides this feedback mechanism for us to know what's happening in the city, the trend of things, and what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And through that, we will now say, okay, it's time for us to review certain aspects of the city because of the reality of what development control is doing every day, engaging with the city and all of that. So development control is the life wire of the city. Beyond helping in the implementation of the master plan, it's also setting the tone for what is going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years through the trajectory of what is documenting and why you should need reviewing a certain aspect of the city.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. No. From what you said, it means the importance of development control in the evolution of any city or Abuja city, for that matter, cannot be overemphasized.
Absolutely.
Because we also know that human beings have the innate tendency that they cannot self-regulate themselves properly.
Absolutely.
So we also need to come in there as a guide, to regulate what they do.
Yeah.
To be consonant with the master plan that controls the city.
That's true.
Very fine. So can we go further to say that what constitutes an illegal development?
Okay.
I know there are many. Or before we come to that, let us look at the professionals that play in the development control process.
Yeah. Okay.
Beyond the town planners, there are other professionals, in the built environment.
Absolutely.
Who have interest in controlling development. And I'm sure they all work in synergy.
Of course. Development control is one family with multiple professionals, especially those in the build sector and all of that. And the bulk of these professionals you find in different units or divisions of the department, right? If you pick the building and inspectorate division, for instance, you have the architects are there, builders are there, civil engineers are there, and all kinds of other professionals are there in the building inspectorate, right? If you pick the planning permit division, for instance, the architects are there, the mechanical engineers are there, the electrical engineers are there, the structural engineers are there, right? If you pick monitoring and enforcement, you also have different kinds of professions that are also there. The bottom line is, because you're dealing with a city and you're talking about development control, you have a synergy of these different professionals who will now provide expertise on architectural designs, provide expertise on structural designs, provide expertise on mechanical designs, provide expertise on all kinds of things. And to really appreciate what these professionals are doing is that when you pick a division, for instance, that's when you see what they're doing. If you pick planning permit, for instance, when the public bring a design for approval, you see the planners visiting the site to produce what you call site assessment report, right? When that's done, it's brought back to the office. You see the architects vetting the design, looking at the architectural design to look at how functional the design is. After that, you have the engineers, the electrical engineers, the mechanical engineers, and all that. So it's a teamwork, and through that teamwork, we're able to do robust vetting process of the submissions of the designs that the public bring to the department. So at the end of the day, we're able to grant approvals that have followed thorough process, and through the expertise of these professionals, so that the approvals granted to the public are not only robust, but are functional and also aim at where the city will grow and become sustainable at the end of the day. So these various professionals play this sort of synergetic role, and you see them working every day and now, so that you have a better city for everyone.
Yes, thank you, Dr. No. And we have another 5 minutes to go. Let us take our mind into what constitutes an illegal development. If we cannot elaborate on them fully today, then wherever the time permits, next week we will continue from there.
Okay. What constitutes an illegal development? Let's put it this way, so that it makes it easier for the listeners, right? At the start of this conversation, we said there's a framework for Abuja, for Abuja to grow and develop, and that framework is through the Abuja Master Plan.
Yeah.
And the Abuja Master Plan sets out all sort of provisions of what should be done, right? Whatever you're doing that's not in line with what the Abuja Master Plan sets out to do, that itself is an illegality.
Let me take you up there.
Not just hang on.
Okay.
Okay, that itself is an illegality. For instance, Abuja Master Plan sets the framework and says for this particular land use, what you should do there is a green area. And what you end up having is not a green area, it's illegality. Abuja Master Plan tells you this place should be left as a floodplain, right, in its pristine state, as a wetland, and you go and develop it, you develop the floodplain, it's an illegality.
Yeah.
So the broad framework, first of all, is that whatever you do that's contrary to the provision of the master plan is illegality. Secondly, when we give you approvals, a thorough process has gone through the approval process in line with what the master plan says. We expect you, the department expects that whatever the approval is, it should be followed, so that the approval is not compromised. Where you also violate the planning permit, the building plan approval, it's an illegality. So there are different forms with which a development can constitute illegality. When it goes contrary to the Abuja master plan provision, when it goes contrary to the building plan approval. Sometimes it may not necessarily be within the framework of the master plan or even the building plan approval, but where you willfully destroy public infrastructure, for instance, right? You just get up one day, you're just constructing shanties. You just get up one day, you're just messing up the city with all sort of things that can also be seen as nuisance or shanties that are distorting the image of the city. So there are a lot of things that could constitute illegality. But broadly, whatever is not in line with the Abuja master plan violates the Abuja master plan, that can be treated as illegality. What violates our building plan approvals can also be treated as illegality. Some of the things that are coming up, which can also constitute public nuisance, right, can also be treated as illegality. So let me hang on a little bit to also hear from what you wanted to.
Yes, what I wanted to say is this, which you have also elaborated on. Are the commencement of any physical development here in Abuja, it is expected that these professionals you mentioned in the built environment should be present even from the foundation stage.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
How much manpower do we really have to do that? Or is it a case of they doing what they think is correct, is consonant with their plan, and we coming back to check later on?
You asked me a couple of the questions. Couple. First of all, you're asking issue of the manpower, whether the development control department has the manpower to engage. The development control has the manpower to engage with all of these. And secondly, you're asking whether there's a thorough process done before approvals are granted. And then thirdly, right when approvals are granted to you, the development control follows up with you, follows up to do what they call setting out. So by the time you get an approval, the local is there with you all the way to guide you how this should also
which means no physical development should be set out without the presence of development control officials.
Yes, and that's what the control does. It's always there from day one to do all of that, to guide you through the process, through the building production process. As soon as you get your approval, it's there to guide you through the setting out and through the construction process. And the control is also proactive at all times, working 24 hours, 24 hours a week to regulate the city, not only the city but all the regional areas. So it's a very vibrant department. When you go there, you see all sort of activities taking place, more like a paramilitary grounds where you see all of things, people walking day and night. Sometimes they walk deep into the night, walking throughout the night. So One of these is go to one of these districts. You see what they're doing.
Yes.
It's a workplace where people work all through the day to make sure that the city is robust and the city is functional.
Yeah. So, in summary,
Yeah.
what you are hearing is that before you set out any development on ground,
Yeah.
secure, the assistance of development control officer, such that whatever you are doing will be in consonance with the permit giving.
Absolutely. First, secure your building plan approval. Secondly, make sure that throughout the building production process, the work control is there guiding you through your setting out and the building through the habitation process, right? All of these are also very, very, very important. But basically, the development control department also want to partner with the public. We want to hear from you your feedback about how we can best serve the public, because at the end of the day, cities are for people.